Hey, how's it going? And today I just wanted to go over some considerations when you're trying to decide what type of blueprint communication to use. There's at least 3 or 4 different choices. In this particular example, we're using blueprint direct communication, a blueprint interface, and event dispatching, and I'll kind of go over a couple pointers about why each one is being used. So in this case, it's just a multiple choice game, and we're just going to start, and it asks who is president. And if we say Harris, it's going to be wrong. Biden, it's going to be correct. You go to the next question. What is the first month of the year? It's January. Of course, these are very difficult questions. And then what year is it? You should know this one, 2023. And then what color is the sky? If I say pink, no, that's wrong. Blue, oh, that's correct. And then I'm done and I quit. And so in this simple example, there's 3 types of blueprint communication. So if we go into the widget here, we're using direct blueprint communication to get all the variables from over here in this blueprint where all the variables are. So the rule of thumb would basically be, if it can be done directly, do it directly. It's almost like if someone's trying to make a point and they're kind of going around about saying it, and you're kind of like, just say what you want. If it can be done directly, do it directly. It's the simplest, cleanest way to do it. And that blueprint to blueprint, this is from a blueprint to a widget. Now, when a widget is communicating outwardly, from itself outward, event dispatching is the preferred way. It's more efficient than functional binding or property binding. And so basically every time the next button is clicked, it sends out a message saying, hey, I need an update. I'd like to get an update on these variables. The next button was clicked. So it's saying the next button was clicked. I'd like to get an update on these variables. The next question is kind of driving everything through an event dispatch. And the event dispatch is here. And if we come over here, this is where it binds in. Now the issue with event dispatching is that it's usually intertwined with another line or cascade or chain of code. And so it can become problematic because it's not necessarily freestanding, and because it has to be bound in, it's bound in with this particular node. And so if I tried to get this to stand on its own, it's going to wreak havoc. So it works kind of within an existing line of code, but it still works, but it's more likely to be intertwined in a code. So for a widget to a blueprint, that's usually not a problem. It works just fine. But in other situations, it may not work so fine. And so what you might want to use then is a blueprint interface. So I'll give you an example of that back here on the widget. When it comes to the very final step of the show here, and we hit the quit button, we actually make a interface call to notify to quit the game. And the reason this works so well is that if I come over here into the questions, it can be its own event. So when you're using a blueprint interface, it can stand on its own as a chain. It's not usually intertwined with something else. So if you're trying to create an event or trigger a chain of code, an interface might be the better way to go, because the notify event can be created and just trigger what needs to happen. In this case, when you hit quit, you just want the blueprint widget to be removed from parent. And so I don't need it really intertwined in here. And if I tried to intertwine this, it just starts getting really problematic. So it's so much easier just to use an interface, because it can have its own event and its own line of code. So those are just a couple of considerations. Basically, if you can do it directly, do it directly. I guess second choice to that would be casting, would be the second choice to that. But if you can do it directly, do it directly. Event dispatching would be a preferred way when it's kind of a blind signal out and you want other blueprints to be able to tap in as needed. It's usually the preferred way for widget communication, for the widget to let things know something has happened. It's preferred over functional binding and property binding. And then the interface would be preferable if you're just wanting to single out a chain of code as its own event. So it's not tied into any other thing happening. You want to trigger something off on its own on a freestanding basis. So those are just some informal considerations you might think of when you're trying to decide what form of blueprint communication to go with. So I hope you found this helpful. Take care and have a super great day.